and welcome to another episode of the Sport of Bowling Show. As you can see, we are coming to you from the USBC Annual Convention here at the South Point in Las Vegas, and it's one of the most exciting times of the year on the bowling calendar. Not only do we get to see how the proverbial sausage gets made for the entire sport here at convention, but the USBC Hall of Fame inductions will take place here on Wednesday night. The collegiate season is wrapping up on CBS Sports Network, and the PWBA Tour season, the 10th anniversary season since the relaunch, gets underway later this week in Topeka, Kansas. Joining us on the show will be USBC President Dennis Hacker, along with Executive Director Chad Murphy and Managing Director of Membership and Championships and the brains behind the USBC convention for the last decade plus, Mike Larsen. Speaking of convention, one simply cannot separate it from the organization that is USBC. So to kick off our show, let's have a look at the history of the association, which goes back an amazing 130 years, and what it is that has allowed it to survive for as long as it has. And finally, how you can become more involved in helping to shepherd the sport into the future. The United States Bowling Congress traces its roots all the way back to 1895, which makes it one of the oldest national governing bodies in the United States. At the time, there was a need for standardization of the playing rules and specifications for the sport, and several groups and organizations tried to fill that void, including the short-lived National Bowling Association. But it was not until a clearer and more democratic structure was formed, called the American Bowling Congress, that the sport began to gather momentum and rise in popularity under a strong, unified organization. The Women's International Bowling Congress came along in 1916 and was founded with a similar governance structure and mission. The two organizations oversaw rapid membership growth, especially after the creation of handicap in 1941, the inclusion of African Americans and other minority groups in 1950, and the development of the automatic pin setter, which led to a huge boom in growth for the next 30 years. During this time, the volunteer structure, led by the board of directors, shepherded many changes and even further standardization of the rules, specifications, and the governance structure for the sport. In 1966, the ABC and WIBC approved the creation of collegiate bowling, and in 1977, the first equipment specifications facility was built. Youth bowling also began to take off, and in 1982, the Young American Bowling Alliance was formed. But things haven't always gone perfectly, and those trials and tribulations have only helped to underline the importance of the board of directors and the governance structure in navigating the road ahead. For example, years of research led to the highly celebrated announcement of a new system of bowling in 1991. But the advent of reactive resin bowling balls, lane oiling machines, and more sophisticated bowling ball drilling and equipment preparation techniques quickly made the changes obsolete and set in motion an entirely new need for updated equipment specifications. A number of factors, including a steady reduction in the number of lane beds in the United States, also caused membership to slowly decline, which eventually necessitated a consolidation of the major governing bodies, who, after much research, debate, and the recommendation of the ABC, WIBC, and YABA boards of directors, merged into one organization, the USBC, in 2005. In the time since, the USBC Board of Directors has been at the forefront of numerous positive changes in the sport, including the relaunch of the PWBA Tour, the continuance of the US Open and US Women's Open, the recent growth of the USBC Open Championships, tiered certification and the development of the ACE tool for measuring lanes more accurately and efficiently, and important equipment specifications updates on bowling ball oil absorption, balance holes, and string pin certification. The responsibility of serving on the USBC Board of Directors has been a fundamental ingredient in ensuring the long-term growth and stability of the sport for more than a century. and it is an experience that allows you to be involved in a historic, thoughtful, important process that helps set the direction and determine the path that is in the best interest of the sport of bowling for years to come. All right, folks, as you can see, we are here at the annual USBC convention. This is actually the room where the USBC Hall of Fame inductions will take place later this week. It's not done yet, but as you can see, it's a big room. There's going to be a few hundred people, and 5 new members will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It will be spectacular. There's going to be, images, murals of each of the inductees hanging on the walls, and they will light up as the inductees get up to give their speeches. So it should be a special night. And as you can see, we've got 3 special guests with us here on the show. USBC Executive Director Chad Murphy. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jason.
You're very welcome. We've got USBC President Dennis Hacker with us.
Thanks, Jason. Awesome to be here. Looking forward to a great week.
And we've got USBC Managing Director of what was it again?
Membership and Championship.
Membership and Champion. It's a new title, so that's why I'm having difficulty remembering it, but it's an important title. And it's also the man who's been in charge of convention for the last decade plus, correct?
Yeah, wow. About 10 years, yeah.
I mean, you
thanks.
still look like the babyface guy, but yeah, you've done a really fantastic job with convention. So.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. It's been awesome. Yeah, looking forward to another great week.
Yep. So let's just get started right into convention. If you're not familiar with how it works, it is really the way the sausage gets made in the industry, in the sport. This is where the rules happen. This is where the board of directors is elected. But it has really evolved, over the last 15 or so years since USBC became a thing, and since these guys came on board and were put in charge of it. But first, let's just get a little bit of a history of convention and how it came about and why it's important and how it works.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it again, we always, talk about it, and I think it's an important perspective, but USBC, came to be from 2 parent organizations, that's ABC and WIBC. If you ever get to the bowling campus, there's a couple pictures on the wall of I think the 79 WIBC convention and an ABC convention where there's, over 3,000 people at each. And remember, it was, all the voting was done on paper ballots at that time. And so, but it's a gathering place for our community, the bowling community, to come in and govern. It's just that simple. When USBC came to be, obviously, when you think about the number of associations and they elect delegates and the delegates come here, any member within USBC can put together a submission. It's like a bill going through Congress for a rules change or an update, and all of that happens here. It's also been a place for education, and so we'll have speakers and those types of things. And if you go back several decades, it's just evolved over time, I think, very positively, from pure governance to an expansion, a place where people can come, network, understand each other. Maybe something's working in a given market, they have conversations and they talk about it, but then the slate of speakers and education, and then we end on Thursday with an election of our board officers, our board of directors, which is cool.
Yeah, Dennis, give us a little bit of your perspective on convention, both before and now.
Well, as I was thinking back through, I'm really in a unique situation. This is kind of my 10-year anniversary of coming to convention. My first one was in Omaha in 2015. I was there as a representative of the state. I was actually an alternate and came because of that, so I lucked into that. And my next convention was 2018 when I was elected to the board of directors. And so I have been a product of just the last 10 years while you guys have all been involved. And it's kind of been a whirlwind, honestly. You can, as we're going to talk about probably later, you can, start very quickly in here, in this organization, if you want to. If you have the desire to get in here and get involved, it can happen very quickly. So, and that's...
I think a unique perspective too, if you think about some of the biggest decisions that have been made in our sport, they happen in that room.
Yeah.
And so something as, simple as, two organizations wanting to come together and become more efficient. That all took place, but over several conventions.
Yeah, right.
'Cause it was originally voted down. You can go back in history and really, think about and be a little bit in awe of all the really major changes, the equipment specs, coming to be, early on. There's just so many things. It would be tough. You could do a 30 for 30 just on the biggest decisions in bowling over, the last, 5 or 6 decades that all happened in a room like this with a small group of people that were interested in being a part of the process. And I think that's kind of the real charm in it as well.
Yeah, for sure. I remember one convention a couple years ago, a woman got up in the town hall and she wanted there to be the ability to vote virtually, remotely. And it had been on the ballot a couple of years, and it had started to gather a little bit of momentum, but it's still, 20, 30% away from passing. And I remember your answer was, you're not going to like the answer, but just keep putting it in front of the group, and if it passes, right? It's up to the members.
Yeah, and I think, from our perspective, in the national office and even we support the delegates, right? That it is kind of the will of the people that make these decisions. And so that one specifically, I think that will pass at some point in time. But when the delegates decide,
right.
Not one or two people in the room,
right.
And I think the other thing that's kind of unique about this, and again, my first convention was, someone that was dear to me going into the Hall of Fame at the time. And so that's what got me here. But it was so interesting because then I would come year after year, and those, the elections, but the legislation, right, when you open it up to the floor, and it's somewhat like that today because the opportunity is still there, but there's been knockdown, drag out, arguments
Sure.
Yes, there has been.
on that floor because people are passionate about the things that happen here. And again, I just think it's one of there's nothing better than high level debate about important things. And that's historically what has gone on in that room. And I think it will forever because I think that we're, everybody in that room cares, right? Very important word, cares about the sport. And so when you get into, thinking about the rules or the future of it, it's easy to get passionate about it.
Yeah. So Mike, I saved you last to answer this question because I'm sure when you found out you'd be in charge of running convention, you did a bunch of research on what it used to look like. And then you also had sort of a vision of what you wanted it to look like going forward. So our next topic is going to be what it sort of looks like now. So if you want to talk a little bit about the past version of it and then roll us into how it has evolved.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun. It's interesting, Dennis, given his perspective on when he first came and then Chad's perspective. And I've been with the organization for 16 years, and the first 4 or 5 conventions I went to, they weren't as fun. But it's what was going on in the marketplace. And when I say the marketplace, within the organization, we had merged nationally, but locals and states hadn't. And so that was some of the friction that was, 10, 15 years ago on the floor. That was the debate that was going on. The vote no's were happening in the discussion. So it was innately going to be a little more combative, right? Governance usually means there's 2 sides. And so we were having to govern, but they were trying to govern themselves, and that's their job to do that. And so once really we got, even back, it was 2015 was when the first one I got to kind of help lead with a great team of people. But the year before, Chad and a few others really kind of set the tone for a new era of convention. We didn't really have any guest speakers come in, experts in whatever the field they were experts in. We didn't do much of that. It was really all internal. And so that kind of set the tone for like the springboard of what it could be. And really that's what led us to that. But 2016 was also a very big year. Legislation passed by the delegates for a dues increase in the future and also to merge the organization to become one by 2018. And so the shift in the survey results, and even you didn't have to wait till the survey results, you could feel it in the space that the contention was going away. And people were really focusing on education and networking. And so that has made it so much more fun over the last 7-8 years since 16. And so it's a joy to be a part of. Speaking of Joy, one of our delegates I just said hi to, who I haven't seen since last year. it's just a phenomenal event. It's such a great network of people wanting to come together, learn from one another, share their best practices, share their challenges, and then try to get words of wisdom from others. And so it's great to see all the hugs and handshakes that go on throughout all day today, throughout the week. And so you even referenced some of the Hall of Fame stuff early on with some of the new lighting stuff. We're always trying to make it better. Every year, how can we add a little bit element of excitement and something new for the delegates, for everybody that attends? Because while it is all the delegates for the week, there are moments for individuals and for certain groups that we want to make really, really special. And so those are also some of the nuances that are different than we did in the past. Our award winners, we walk them all backstage so they get a feeling of what it's going to be like to take a kid and their parents backstage before they're going to get an award. I get choked up just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, those moms and dads are to the moon for their kids.
Yeah.
And as a parent myself, right, that's, talk to somebody else real quick.
Yeah, let me just to hop in there, past, Mike hit on it. We made some significant change. It was an investment, right, into the delegates, and probably, never more proud of getting that merger passed a few years later. But it was a product of really shifting the culture inside of this room from a group that was really disappointed, right, with the association as a whole and the direction, to us essentially celebrating, that local channel of distribution, if you will, through this room, but then also education and communication as to the why. And I think this is just a place for that. But the delegates themselves, they want to gobble up, right, that education and that information that Mike was talking about. There's all kinds of things that we do differently today than we did then, but really, and I think Mike hit it. I mean, even if you go back to when the big merger or some of the bigger decisions, these are huge things, right? And so there should be, a high-level debate, and maybe not completely, agreement. But I just remember when all those first conventions, we were really struggling to take care of the delegates while they were here. And so things that didn't have anything to do with that room were getting into the room. Somebody would raise their hand. Well, hey, the food this week was terrible. We didn't service them in a way, right? But you have to listen to it because it's real, right? They were feeling it. And so we did some things to make the experience, better in that sense. And it made the debate easier when people disagreed, because now it wasn't a full-on a fight, if you will. It was just a respectful, back and forth.
Yeah. And Dennis, as president, I mean, it feels like you guys both said it, fun, but also ideas, and it's a place where ideas sort of come together. So talk a little bit about, as president, when everybody gets together and then you guys get a chance to talk to the delegates and then go in the room and talk with each other. What happens in that room when you're at convention?
Well, it's just the engagement, honestly, of the people around with the folks that are on the board. It's a different respect from delegates to us, it feels like. I was remembering in 2015, like I said, I was an alternate. I came with a lady from my state who had probably attended up to 30 conventions prior to, with WIBC and then with USBC as we merged. And I actually got involved with some of the board members back then. I proposed an amendment to the merger in 2015, and I got up to go to the microphone, and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to go propose an amendment." And she said, "You're going to talk at your first convention." I mean, just and the whole
no pressure.
The whole premise of the thing with her was, this is not, you don't get up and talk at the USBC convention the first time that you go. You sit there and listen. And now I think the attitude of the delegates is way more open to us. They're willing to talk to us now and willing to share their opinions, and they know, hopefully, I mean, as Mike talked earlier, governance has two sides, and nobody likes government, period. We know that. So when we have to make decisions, hopefully they know that we're making the best decision for the organization now with no personal interest in what's going on.
If I could hit one too, things that people may not be aware of, our board strategically manages everything. And so through their input, well, one of the things that you're talking about there that happened is, we had a group come together and talk about how to make convention better. And one of the things that group of board members, again, just a small group of people saying, hey, we'd like to see this different, they decided to seat the board instead of in one position at the front of the room. The board split out and they now sit with the delegates at different places in the room. And it was just genius, if you think about it. And it made it easier for maybe someone to approach a board member or have a conversation. And it was just, it was one of those things that if you don't have those group of people in the room talking about it, I don't know that we'd ever thought of that.
Sure.
That makes sense, Mike? Because it's just
100%.
one of those things. But it's been such a, I always stand in the room and I kind of watch. It's just amazing how engaged the board is with the group now, but a major improvement. But it came from, right, a group of volunteer leaders saying, hey, would this be a good idea?
Sure.
So,
The truth is, too, that, the board is no different than any of the delegates that are out there. That's what I'd really love for them to understand. We may look, we may stand apart from them. We may look different to them, but we aren't. We're the same as all of them. We just happen to be lucky enough to have gotten elected to serve in this position, and it's a great experience.
Yeah, you're them 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'd just say there too, to Dennis's point, anybody that's interested in board service, we have a lot of folks that come in and maybe they don't really think that it's for them, right? Well, it wasn't for Dennis at one point in time, but it really is for, if you know association business, that's the core function of this. And so you have a place here within our governance.
Yeah. So we are going to be broadcasting convention again on Bowl TV. It's free to watch. We do it every year that way. But Mike, if you could lead us off and just tell us maybe some of the headlines to watch for, not necessarily big rule things that are on the docket, but what are some of the things people can watch for at this year's convention?
Yeah, obviously being here is really part of the experience, and so the keynote speaker that we're really excited about, Jim Morris, former pro baseball player, joining us. He's not Dennis Quaid, but Dennis Quaid wanted to be him in a movie. So pretty excited to get to meet him, and he's going to inspire the group Tuesday morning, and then a full slate of education on Tuesday. That is all going to be great stuff for our association reps to take back home to their boards and improve on their activations locally to help service their members. Wednesday, we get to see some new candidates for the board. Excited about that, to see how that plays out on Thursday. And then Wednesday night is always one of the best nights of the year for bowling. We will, as you said earlier, celebrate in this room 5 new inductees to the USBC Hall of Fame. If you've never watched the Hall of Fame induction, please do so. Set your timer. Tune in. It's just a great show, a great event. It's the epitome of what you can achieve in our sport, and so we're proud to honor those folks. And there won't be a dry eye in the room. And if you're watching at home, you might shed a tear there too, because these speeches are usually just incredible for the life stories and history of those in our sport. And then Thursday becomes more recognition. I mentioned some of the kids earlier that got me a little choked up. Just seeing the kids who are youth ambassadors or youth bowlers of the year, our association reps who have given their life to service to the sport. We recognize them during the annual meeting on Thursday, and so that'll be live streamed too. You might know some of those folks, so definitely tune in and see your local reps or your local award winners get honored on the national stage. And then into the governance Thursday afternoon with the board elections and the legislative proposals that are there. So just a handful of them. And then the town hall right after that. The town hall, I will agree with what you guys said. You can tell the town hall has more engagement because people are, it lasts longer, but it's because people feel like it's more approachable for them. I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, you get 2 or 3 questions, and now there's 20, 30, and then that's not including the people that are waiting at the podium for their own question that they didn't write down yet. So it's great to see just the engagement of the people. It's going to be a great week. It always is, but everyone's special. Our delegates, we definitely, my team that I've worked with for years, we get to see the fruits of our labor a lot. We go out into the field during the summertime. We'll go to the state meetings across the country, and to hear the representatives at the state meetings talk about those events and what they learned at convention and then bringing it back. It really reminds us about the importance of this event and what it can bring back to the grassroots of our game.
Yeah, and one thing, we always have at every convention is some kind of special celebration, right? And so like a couple of years we've had Team USA players retire. We had a PWBA celebration when that was relaunched. And this year there's a celebration of a league that just celebrated its 125th year in existence. So
yeah, we're excited about it. It'll be on Thursday after lunch. I'm going to actually turn it over to these guys to talk about it. But we got an email, from a local that, essentially said, hey, and I sent it over to Mike and I said, what do you think about, Thursday on stage, bringing these folks in? And it's turned into such an amazing, journey for really the league, 125 years. But for us to be a part of it, Dennis and Mike actually went out to their celebration. And then so we're going to take that, celebration, which was a really big deal, locally, and we're going to recreate it on stage on Thursday. I don't know if either one of you has a perspective about it.
The first thing that struck me is the league is 16 teams by 4, so that's 64 people strong, and they had about 140 people in the room. So
at their banquet.
At the banquet.
Yeah.
People that bowled the league 20 years ago and no longer do, it was important enough for them to come and celebrate the 125th anniversary of this league.
Yeah.
This league has never had a stick of handicap. It's totally scratched for 125 years. It's amazing to me. And I'm a stats geek. I told them that whenever I was on stage. This binder is that thick of the stats that they have. The things they keep track of. It's awesome. And I asked them whenever I talked a little bit, and I asked them who figured out this was something special, and at what point did we realize that it was to continue the history and make it 100 years, make it 125 years. So that was it was tremendous to be there.
It's pretty fitting that this league and what they've captured over those years are the first ones to get to 125. Like, you don't get there by accident, right? They got a long way along, and then we're like, hey, and then it got better, and the record's even more robust. And I mean, yearly average, high average that's kept over time. They have their own Hall of Fame for a league. I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was a very cool night to be there. They're very proud. They're honored to be coming to be recognized, and so it's going to be pretty cool.
And just to close that, and JT, I love the way you asked the question, because you think about all of the folks that we've had in this slot, right? This is, it's governance, it's intense, right? It's local associations coming together to govern, but there's also this celebration piece. And if you think about all the things that we've put in this one couldn't be more USBC, right? Because it's league, it's local, and it's 125 years. When you think about the tradition of the association to begin with, a lot of folks look at our support for the pro tours and those things, and they think, and I always say, hey, we're doing that as an aspirational value for the little kids that are coming up, but our core business is league and tournament play.
Yeah.
And so 125 years in the league. Yeah. This celebration is going to be a little bit different because it is so unique but core to what USBC is about.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. So, final topic. A lot of people will want to, say negative things about USBC, right? And I think when they do that, they sort of see USBC as this monolithic entity, but really what it is, it's people, right? I mean, all the people that founded the original organizations that are now USBC, they're all dead and gone. They've been gone a long time, right? So this is an organization of people, and it only goes if people want to become involved in it. So why don't you guys, let's close it out by talking about how people can get involved.
Yeah, it's interesting how you phrase that, for sure. We are just made up of people, and I've had many conversations at association meetings too, where even though they are in their own sense at a local level or at a state level, they know their association is just made up of people, volunteers for the most part, and yet sometimes it doesn't articulate to them that we're the same way nationally. While we're mostly employees, but our board is all volunteer, right? And so we are here as people help servicing the next group down to just set the stage for the group after. And so anytime that you have a situation in bowling that might be challenging for you or not understanding, there's people who just want to make it better. It doesn't mean we always can, because there is the governance side of it, but our service side, I do believe, has improved drastically over the years. And the folks at every level want bowling to be better. They wouldn't volunteer their time on the local, state, or national level if they didn't have a passion for it. And so for those out there who might not understand or have something they're disgruntled about, I'd encourage you to ask questions. Find out why things might be the way they are. We all only have the lens we know ourselves, but we're trying to look out for the greater good at all times. And so I would just encourage them to ask questions. I'll kick it to you guys to talk about how they can get involved locally, but that's really how it starts. I mean, I loved how Dennis's story at the start here. I was only 10 years ago. I was just a first-time alternate, and now I'm on stage with the gavel.
It's absolutely crazy that that's true. I mean, I'm thinking back to how I got involved. Social media was a big part of my life at the time, and I loved the sport. I loved it for my entire life. I've been a computer guy, so the two things just kind of went together. And I was trying to understand the decisions that were being made by this organization. And then when I could figure it out, rather than just, let people go whatever direction they were going to, I tried to help explain, and I got noticed. Somebody said, hey, with the perspective like you're showing us right now, maybe you should get involved. Maybe you should come out here and do this. So I got involved, and I never thought that I would be in the chair that I'm in right now, to be honest, to start out with. But I watched the board evolve over the last 7 years of being in there. It's a whole different group of people. It changes every single year, and we still have the same job to do. And we need new leaders all the time. So nobody knows. You're going to get involved in your first year. By year 3, you better be, if you're interested, you better be looking at leadership at some point.
Yeah, hopefully I can be efficient with this one, but also be careful. Be careful, because you can do that and then you're president.
Right? Well,
so,
he's got a stack of recap sheets that he's going to be inputting into
I've got scores to put in.
meetings.
We're not doing this
He's
right
still
now.
doing real stuff.
For a youth tournament, honestly. So.
I go back and, Melissa McDaniel was the president before Dennis, and it was the same way. Someone, got her involved and there was conversation. But initially, the answer to the question, I always say it's in the promise, right? If you're interested in celebrating the past, being mindful about the present, and ensuring a future for the sport, there's a place for you here. I think there are two paths. One, start out locally, get involved in your local area, or maybe a youth committee. You just think about all the ways in, you can do that. And again, I say be careful, because if you're good at it, which if you're passionate about it, if you're willing to take in information, assimilate the data, and have an opinion, there's a place for you here. Anywhere within the organization, the 25,000 volunteers across the country. And it will reward you, I think, in ways that I don't think people imagine at the beginning, because you're working on something that you're passionate about. I would also say there's another way, because there's two types of people in this space: the volunteers who are willing to speak strategically, and then the ones who roll up their sleeves and actually want to do the work. Now, both groups have to roll up their sleeves and think about it that way. But if you listen to Mike talk today, right, 16 years, been running convention, and it just has slowly taken on more, go to the careers page at bowl.com and take a look. There's 3 jobs. We're expanding Mike's team right now. And one of the things that you'll be doing is the association business and being a part of this convention. But again, it's an honor and a privilege in all of these spaces. But if you're even thinking, maybe, right? Again, if you really, it's just the littlest curiosity, right? Raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to figure out a way to serve. It's for you.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And we talked a lot on this episode, and this is a very exciting time of year, because this is sort of the kickoff point for so many things that happen in the bowling calendar, right? We've got PWBA starting this week. The convention is a chance to elect new board members and sort of make the rules for the next season. And there's just so much going on. The college season is ending, but it's going to be an exciting week. I'm really happy to be here again with you guys. Thank you. I know you got busy schedules and lots of meetings today and lots of people to talk to and things. So thanks for coming on the show today. But we've got one more segment left on the show. Stay tuned. It's the final frame coming up next here on the Sport of Bowling Show.
For the majority of my bowling life, I didn't really understand how league bowling was structured, or how the rules and specifications that govern the sport were made. It wasn't even until I took a job working for USBC in 2014 that I even knew there was an annual convention where all of this took place. And by then,
thanks to some of the individuals on today's show, in addition to thousands of volunteers, yes, volunteers, they aren't being paid for their time, the event had evolved into the celebration and networking and idea sharing extravaganza that it is. The thing about rules is that we don't think we want them until something bad happens, and then we very much insist that they are around to protect us. And someone has to take responsibility for making those rules in the fairest and most equitable way possible, and then enforce those rules so that they are taken seriously, and so they can establish integrity in the sport. It's not always the funnest job, but again, it is extremely important if you want to have a real sport, and not just some backyard free-for-all flag football game. Why are the rules important? Because it turns out that people actually care that their accomplishments exist in an environment that is relatable to their peers. We want to know where we stand within the hierarchy, and rules very much are the only way for this to be able to happen. We want to know that the scores we bowl were rolled with the same equipment that can be used by everyone else, and that the lane is the same length, and that the pins weigh the same as the ones that were used when that guy we heard about in another state broke the record we've got our eyes set on breaking. Amazingly, the delegates who attend the USBC convention each year do it out of their love for the sport. They pay their own way to attend, and they're here to learn, celebrate the sport, and have a hand in making sure that bowling is going in the right direction. They don't always agree, but the event is built for those disagreements to unfold in a productive manner so that everyone's voice can be heard, and so the best ideas have a chance to move forward as the organization evolves with the times, which it has for 130 years and counting. If you've never been to convention, you should go, but at the very least, check out our free broadcast on Bowl TV to see all of the amazing things that happen here and that have been happening at this storied event that is now well into its second century. Thanks for watching our show, and until next time, may you fill every frame.